17 minutes ago, a state of emergency was declared in the Alpha Centauri system, followed by the Lalande system 3 minutes later. These emergencies were declared after sensor arrays detected a massive number of amoeba incoming from deep space, and the number of amoeba are still rising. The typical number of amoeba that approach the Alpha Centauri system is 17 each month, but within the last hour, over 73 have been detected, and the numbers are still rising. A similar case has been reported by the Lalande system. Similar reports have begun emerging within the last 5 minutes. Reports from other systems describe sudden increases in incoming amoeba, and as I speak, sensor arrays within the solar system itself have detected 30 plus contacts. Senior military leaders of a 27 Corvette strong Alpha Centauri amoeba defense fleet have expressed deep concern and have stated that they have insufficient power to combat the incoming threat and have reached out to the Council for support. Despite calls for calm and faith from national leaders, many streets are filled with crowds of angry and terrified people. Notably in many post-federal nations is where the outcry is the loudest. Calls for the reformation of the Federation echo across the streets, and false prophets of doom cry false gospel of the end times being upon us. Many have called for an explanation to this sudden amoeba invasion, but leading scientists have already said in the past that there is no explanation for the increase in amoeba aggressiveness, though they were investigating several possibilities. The Council of Unity has yet to make a public statement, but have issued a general mobilization of all Council forces and compulsory mobilization of all Council nations, excluding post-federal nations, in the interest of keeping the peace between the nations in a time of crisis. Mass production of corvettes continues as navies continue to struggle against mounting pressure of the amoeba swarms, the production vessels outstripping allied production. Factory work hours are set to rise to meet council quotas.
We will meet this threat threefold and drive back this scourge. The times ahead are tough, but humanity will prevail.
57,000 dead, leaving Alpha Centauri on the brink of collapse. It's unclear how the most fortified system in Council space fell at this time, but
the provision of people's daily needs will be accounted for as we increase taxation. None will be left behind.
Devastation wrecks outer colonies as cargo ships fail to deliver vital supplies. Martial law has been declared in many to maintain law and order. Citywide blackouts are being introduced to save electricity for industrial uses. Additionally, the price of electricity has risen by 200%.
The times are trying, but do not give up hope. Military efforts will be redoubled as we unveil new weapons of war.
And the destroyer-class ships that have spent months in production were unveiled today. 70 state-of-the-art destroyers will act as a spearhead to break through to the long cut-off local systems. Several corporations have agreed to subsidize the cost of ammo for these ships and temporarily take over the agricultural industry. Rioting mounts as people are pushed to the brink by cuts to public funding and high work demands. The council has been criticised for these cuts while spending on drugs industry and education remains high.
This war is not yet won, but now, when we see light at the end of the tunnel, enemies emerge from within.
Cruiser-class ships are believed to be the most advanced and destructive vessels ever built. The costs of these vessels were expected to be astronomical, but corporate funding and bursaries have made the construction of 200 cruisers possible. More protests today as post-federal nations cry for independence, claiming they've been fighting a war in the interests of their oppressors. Leaders of the post-federal nations assure the Council that these tensions will subside, and that whilst their people are not on side, that they are.
Despair no longer, for at long last our scientists have discovered the cause of the Proforan scourge that assaults us. Never before did these beasts attack us, because not until recently did we take to the stars. Our ozone layers protected us from them, from the direct touch of sunlight. Astronauts were the exception.
And these anti-council rallies have spread to the once heavily pro-council countries. Authorities hesitate to act, as the rights to protest and free speech are still upheld by the council.
Soon the production of the drug will begin. In the interests of security, we cannot disclose how exactly the drug prevents our apocalypse, but I can disclose that our exposure to sunlight without the protection of the ozone has made us all targets.
Following the death of the Prime Speaker, authorities have been issued crackdown orders. The right to bear arms has been retracted in all countries, including the United States.
Additionally, the right to protest has been suspended, and all citizens must now register at their most local enforcer station to receive identification implants. These implants make criminal and non-criminals distinct and easy to locate. Resistance against enforcers today has been crushed. Our disciplined police forces roundly routed the criminal protesters with the use of crowd-dispersing gases and non-lethal firearms.
Production of the Sanctum drug begins today. In addition, punishment for the possession of the exotic chemical drug known as SRO is expected to become much more severe, many sources suggesting capital punishment to be reintroduced. It is unclear how these events are correlated, but the Council assures everyone that it is in the people's best interest to cooperate with authorities who will be delivering these vaccines. Victories mount as the Scourge are driven back by the new battleships. Still, the Scourge continue to assault defence stations, and many other colonies are feared to have starved to death. As vaccines roll out across Council space, the Scourge seems to dissipate and return to deep space. The Council refuses how to explain how the drug works, but has informed us that the drug passes down to future generations and does not require reapplying for at least 10 generations. Regardless, today marks the end of the Scourge. Mankind has triumphed. That's all we have time for today. And remember, unity is mandatory.